All right, ready to dive deep. Today, it's all about diffusion models. They're totally changing how we design, like everything from images to, get this, molecules. It's crazy. Basically, they create by going backwards. Instead of starting with a masterpiece and kind of messing it up, they start with noise and learn how to make it into something awesome.
You can think of it like watching a blurry picture slowly coming into focus, revealing the design underneath.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. We don't just want any random design, right? We're looking for designs that are actually good, designs with specific properties we want, like, say, a super stable protein or maybe a DNA sequence that only works in certain cells. That's where reward functions come in. They're kind of like judges telling us how well a design is doing its job.
Right, think of them as scoring systems. A reward function checks out a design based on what we want, and the higher the score, the better the design.
Okay, so we've got these diffusion models making designs, and we've got reward functions telling us which ones are good. So the big question is, how do we get those models to constantly pump out designs that score high on our reward functions?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky. Traditionally, we've tried to optimize everything all at once, kind of try to make the model create a perfect design right off the bat. But the paper we're looking at today, it's about a totally different approach, an iterative approach.
Iterative, so like multiple rounds of refinement. Sounds fancy. What's the idea behind that?
It's all about getting past the limits of trying to do everything in one go. Imagine you're trying to sculpt like a masterpiece out of clay. If you try to nail every tiny detail on the first try, you might miss some chances to create something truly incredible.
So it's more like taking a step back, reevaluating, and then making changes along the way.
Exactly. This paper, it introduces this framework they called RERD, Reward Guided Evolutionary Refinement in Diffusion Models. So instead of going for perfection right away, BIRD, it breaks the design process into these multiple stages. In each stage, you add some noise back to the design, kind of shake things up a bit, and then use the reward function to guide the model toward designs with those high scoring qualities that we want.
Wait, hold on. You're adding noise back in. That seems, I don't know, counterintuitive. Why would you mess up a perfectly good design?
Think of it more like exploring different options, new possibilities. By adding some noise, we're letting the model think outside the box a little, maybe discover designs it wouldn't have even considered otherwise.
Ah, got it. So it's not really about messing things up. It's about like boosting creativity and exploration.
Exactly. And the really cool part is because it's iterative, RERD can actually fix mistakes made in earlier stages. Let's say the model made a decision early on that ended up leading to a not so great design. No problem. RERD can go back and tweak those decisions later based on the reward feedback. It's like having an undo button for design.
I love that. So Root is way more flexible and forgiving than those single shot methods. But is it just like a clever trick, or is there some serious theory backing it up?
Oh, there's definitely solid theory behind it. The paper's authors, they actually prove that RERD isn't just randomly stumbling around. It's actually working to find designs that hit that sweet spot between scoring high on the reward function and looking natural, like finding that perfect balance between creativity and sticking to the rules of the game.
That's fascinating. So it's not just blindly going after the highest score. It's about finding designs that are both effective and plausible, like they could actually exist in the real world.
Precisely. And the paper goes even deeper into the nuts and bolts, outlining the specific version of Word, what they call algorithm 2. It gets into the nitty-gritty of how the Madi actually uses that reward feedback.
Algorithm 2, huh? That sounds intriguing. What makes this one so special?
Well, it uses these two techniques that are key to its success, importance sampling and resampling. Think of importance sampling like a way to focus on the most promising designs. It helps us zero in on the ones that seem like they're on the right track to getting those high rewards.
So we're not treating all the designs the same way. We're giving more attention to the ones that look like they're headed the right direction.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. And then you have resampling. It's kind of like a selection process. We take all the designs that have been made, look at their reward scores, and pick the best ones to move on to the next round of refinement.
So it's like constantly refining and improving the designs, almost like evolution, right? The best designs make it through and they get passed on to the next generation.
You got it. That's a great way to think about it. Our egg actually has a lot in common with these things called evolutionary algorithms. It's like we're harnessing the power of evolution to help guide our designs towards perfection.
That's so cool. All right, so we've got this iterative process, this balancing act between reward and naturalness, and this connection to evolution. It all sounds pretty theoretical, though. Can you give me some real-world examples of how this actually works, like in real design problems?
Absolutely. The paper dives into specific examples of RERD in action, tackling some real design challenges in both protein and DNA design. Let's start with proteins. Imagine you're trying to design a protein that needs to fold into this very specific shape to do its job.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. Proteins are like these tiny little machines, and their shape is super important for how they function.
Right. So you can use MERD to guide the design process using a reward function that basically rewards designs that fold into that exact shape you want. And the amazing thing is that ERD can actually design protein sequences that not only fold correctly, but also look like they could have evolved naturally.
Wow, so it's not just about forcing a design to work, it's about finding solutions that are both functional and elegant, like they belong in nature.
Exactly. And the researchers actually found that RERD consistently beat other methods in achieving that balance. They tested it on all sorts of protein design challenges, like designing proteins that match certain structures, proteins that fit perfectly with a target structure, even proteins with specific levels of uh, globularity and symmetry.
So it's like Word is a master sculptor, shaping these proteins into these super precise forms. What about DNA? How do they use Word for DNA design?
That's where it gets even more interesting. They used BIRD to design something called cell type specific regulatory DNA. It's a mouthful, I know.
Cell type specific. So it's like DNA that only works in certain types of cells. That sounds super powerful, especially for something like, say, gene therapy.
Exactly. Let's say you wanted to use a gene therapy that only targets cancer cells but doesn't touch healthy cells. You could use WORD to design DNA sequences that are only active in those cancer cells.
Okay, that is incredible. And did it work? Was Word able to design these super specific DNA sequences?
It totally did. They tested ARD on this particular type of DNA sequence called an enhancer. Think of it like a switch, turning genes on or off. The goal was to design enhancers that were super active in specific cell lines while staying inactive in others. And guess what? VERD, it outperformed all the other methods they tried, creating enhancers that were way more precise and targeted in their activity.
That's amazing. So we've got Rode designing proteins with crazy precision and then crafting DNA sequences that act like targeted switches. It sounds like this could totally revolutionize how we approach design in so many different areas.
It definitely has the potential to be a real game changer. But before we get too carried away, let's take a step back and dig a bit deeper into some of the technical details of RERD.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's break it down.
So, one of the things that makes RERD so cool is how it balances exploration and exploitation during the design process.
Exploration and exploitation, those sound kind of, I don't know, intense. What do they actually mean in terms of design?
It's all about how the algorithm goes about finding the best design solutions. Exploration, that's like the algorithm's willingness to try out new stuff, maybe even unconventional designs, even if they don't seem that promising at first.
It's like venturing off the beaten path, going into uncharted design territory.
Exactly. And then there's exploitation. That's more about focusing on refining and improving those promising designs that we've already found.
So exploration is kind of like casting a wide net, while exploitation is honing in on the best catches.
That's a great way to put it. And finding that right balance between the two, it's crucial for herd to work well. If it's too much exploration, it might just wander around and never really get to the best designs.
And if it gets stuck on just exploiting, it might miss out on even better solutions that are, out there waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And that's where the choice of noise schedule comes in. Remember how in each step of Bird, we add a bit of noise back to the design, kind of mix things up? Well, the amount and type of noise we add, it can affect that whole balance between exploration and exploitation.
So it's like we're adjusting the size of the net we're casting, or figuring out how long we look at each catch before moving on.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. Researchers are always trying out different noise schedules to see how they affect words performance. It's all about fine-tuning that search strategy to make sure it's really exploring all those design
It
possibilities.
sounds like finding that perfect noise schedule. It's like walking a tightrope. What other challenges are researchers running into as they develop RERD?
Another big focus is improving how we approximate the soft optimal policy.
Okay, can you remind me, what's that again? It's been a while since we talked about it.
The soft optimal policy, basically, it's like a set of rules that tell the algorithm the best way to navigate through all the design options. It uses the reward function to figure out which design choices are most likely to lead to those high-scoring solutions.
So it's like a map that helps the algorithm find the best path up to the top of like a reward mountain.
Exactly. But in Word, we don't have a perfect map. We have to kind of estimate this policy based on the reward feedback we're getting. And how we approximate this policy, well, it can really impact how well Word works.
So it's like trying to navigate using a map that's, I don't know, a bit blurry or incomplete.
Right. Researchers are always coming up with new and better ways to approximate this policy. Some of them even involve using really machine learning models to analyze that reward feedback and make better guesses about which design are going to be winners.
Wow, it sounds like a really cutting-edge area of research. What are some of the most promising approaches they're looking into?
One approach that's showing a lot of promise is using gradient information from the reward function. The gradient, it basically tells us the direction where the reward is increasing the fastest.
So it's like having a compass that points us toward the best design choices.
Precisely. By using that gradient information, we can guide our search process in a much smarter way, making sure it's always going in a direction that's likely to improve the design.
That's cool. It seems like we've been talking a lot about the technical side of art. I'm also curious about its bigger applications. We've talked about protein and DNA design, but are there other areas where this whole iterative approach could be useful?
That's a great question. Art's potential goes way beyond just biomolecules. It could really change how we design all sorts of things, from small molecules to like advanced materials.
Small molecules, so we're talking about stuff like, drugs and medicines.
Exactly. Drug discovery is a super complex and consuming process. One of the biggest hurdles is designing molecules that can really effectively target certain proteins in the body. Art could be huge in this field, letting us design molecules with very specific binding abilities.
So we could create drugs that are more targeted, more effective, and maybe even have fewer side effects.
That's the idea. And it goes even further. Think about using RD to design materials with customized properties. Materials that are stronger, lighter, tougher, maybe even able to repair themselves.
Self-healing materials. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but researchers are already making progress in that area. And RD could be a key player in designing these next-gen materials, letting us fine-tune their properties all the way down at the molecular level.
That's wild. So we've gone from designing proteins and DNA to potentially designing the materials of the future. It really seems like RD could be a total game changer across all kinds of fields.
It definitely has the potential to shake things up, but it's important to remember RD isn't some magic solution. It's a tool, and just like any tool, it has its limitations.
That's a good point. We always have to be realistic about what technology can and can't do. What are some of the main limitations of RD that we should keep in mind?
One of the main ones is that RD, at least how it is now, relies on these pre-trained diffusion models. These models, they're trained on these massive data sets of existing designs, and that training data, it can affect the types of designs that RD can come up with.
So even though RD is creating new designs, it's still influenced by the designs it's learned from. Kind of like write a new song, but only having a limited set of notes to work with.
That's a great analogy. And relying on these pre-trained models, it can kind of limit how innovative RD can really be. If we want to design things that are radically different and groundbreaking, we might need to develop diffusion models that are trained on, well, more diverse and less biased data sets.
Or maybe even trained on completely new types of data, stuff beyond the usual molecules and materials.
Now, that's an interesting thought. Imagine training a diffusion model on data from nature, the intricate shapes of plants and animals, the amazing patterns of galaxies, how birds fly in those perfect formations.
That would be like a truly bio-inspired way to design. It could open up so many new possibilities for creativity and innovation.
I agree. It's an exciting area for future research, and I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
So we've talked about the challenges of finding that right noise schedule, the whole thing with approximating the soft optimal policy, and the exciting potential of using R and for so many different design problems.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey through the world of RIDE, and we've really only scratched the surface.
And as we keep refining and developing this powerful tool, I'm sure we'll see even more amazing applications pop up in the years to come. So as we wrap up our deep dive into ROAD, I keep thinking about possibilities we've talked about. It's clear that ROAD is like this super powerful tool that could totally reshape how we think about design in so many different fields.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. We're moving from just analyzing and understanding designs that already exist to actually creating brand new designs that fit our exact needs and goals.
So we're graduating from design school and becoming, I don't know, true design innovators. We're not just copying nature anymore. We're working with it, even pushing its boundaries a little.
And what's driving this huge shift is, well, a few things coming together at the same time. The explosion of data we have now, the crazy advancements in machine learning, and our growing understanding of nature's fundamental building blocks.
It's like we're finally figuring out the secrets of nature's design language and learning to write our own masterpieces.
And RD gives us the tools to do exactly that. It lets us move beyond just trial and error to design with real intention and precision. It's like having a sculptor's chisel for the molecular world.
But as with any powerful tool, we got to use it responsibly, right? We talked about the limitations of pre-trained models and the need for diverse data sets. But what are some of the bigger implications of RERD for, the future of design as a whole?
One of the most exciting things about RERD is its potential to make design more democratic. Traditionally, design has been this thing for experts, people with specialized knowledge and access to really expensive equipment. But RERD and these other AI-driven design tools, they could make design more accessible to like way more people.
So instead of needing a PhD in biochemistry to design a new protein, you could have someone with like a basic understanding of biology using R to explore different design possibilities. That's incredible.
Exactly. It could open up a whole new world of innovation, letting people from all sorts of backgrounds and with different perspectives contribute to the design process.
It's like putting the power of design in everyone's hands. That could lead to some really amazing breakthroughs.
I totally agree. And as these design tools get even more sophisticated and easier to use, we might see a surge in creativity and innovation across all sorts of fields. Imagine a world where anyone with a good idea and a computer can design new materials, medicines, heck, even new forms of life.
That's mind-blowing. But as we move into this new territory, we really need to be careful and think ahead.
Absolutely. Like we've talked about throughout this whole deep dive, we have to keep ethical considerations front and center. We got to be aware of potential biases, unintended consequences, and the possibility of misuse. Open discussions, thoughtful regulations, and a real commitment to transparency are super important.
It's a good reminder that when it comes to tech advancements, it's not just about the tech itself, it's about the values we build into it and the choices we make about how we use it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. As we navigate this exciting new world of AI-driven design, we need to approach it with both tons of enthusiasm and a deep sense of responsibility.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored how road works, its amazing capabilities, and how it could change the future of design forever. It's been an incredible journey.
It's been awesome sharing all these insights with you. And to our listener, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and be part of the conversation about how we design the world around us. The future is ours to shape, and it's up to us to do it responsibly and with lots of creativity.